Hello, everyone. I'd like you to start by thinking about a question. What do you think happens to your body if you eat fried chicken, French fries, and high-sugar drinks every day for 4 consecutive months? Most people's first reaction would be getting fat, red marks on the medical report, or waistline growing by 2 inches. But today, I am going to tell you a cold truth. According to a major 2019 study published in Frontiers in Cellular Neuroscience, the most brutal blow a high-fat diet HFD deals is not to your waist, but to your cerebral cortex and neural synapses. The experimental report we are breaking down today shows that in just 18 weeks, about 4.5 months, a high-fat diet acts like a silent demolition crew. It destroys the brain's energy factories from their foundational logic, severs the communication cables between neurons, and even strangles our ability to create new memories. Are you ready? Today, we aren't talking about willpower. We are talking about a domino-style collapse occurring inside your skull. Chapter E. Forced switching of the energy engine. The experiment began with a group of male C57BL, 6 eyes. Scientists divided them into 2 groups. One fed a standard diet, the control group, and the other fed a high-fat diet consisting of 50% fat, the HFD group. After 18 weeks, the HFD mice did not just experience a massive surge in body weight and body fat percentage, jumping from 9% to 31.9%. Something even stranger happened to their respiratory quotient, RQ. What is RQ? Simply put, it reflects what fuel your body is burning. The control mice had an RQ of 92, meaning they could flexibly utilize carbohydrates. The high-fat group's RQ dropped to 77. What does this mean? It indicates their bodies lost energy flexibility and were forced to rely almost entirely on fatty acid metabolism. Does that sound like fat burning? Wrong. This is actually the start of a metabolic engine malfunction. This forced switch causes a large amount of unmetabolized fuel to accumulate, turning into toxic lipids and triggering systemic low-grade inflammation. Chapter R. The total collapse of the endocrine defense line as these fats run rampant in the body. Your fat cells are no longer just storage tanks. They become an out-of-control endocrine organ. Researchers tested the mice's serum and found 2 critical hormonal imbalances. Leptin levels surged abnormally. You may have heard that leptin is the signal that makes you feel full. But when it is too high, the brain develops leptin resistance. Your body is full, but your brain thinks you are starving. Adiponectin levels plummeted. This is our body's protective hormone that fights inflammation and increases insulin sensitivity. Its disappearance directly triggers a surge in systemic pro-inflammatory factors like TNF-alpha and IL-beta. At this point, your body has become a gunpowder-filled battlefield. Blood sugar rises, insulin levels redline, and the HOMA-I index sprints toward type 2 diabetes. But the scariest part is that this war spreads through blood circulation and crosses that once sacred, inviolable barrier, the blood-brain barrier. Chapter 3. Resting inside the brain now. Let us point the microscope at the cerebral cortex. In this study, scientists observed that the cerebral cortex of the HFD mice was in a state of severe oxidative stress. If the brain is a precision instrument, it is currently rusting. Increased aggression, pro-inflammatory factors rise. TNF-alpha and IL-beta have infiltrated the brain. Defenses collapse, antioxidants drop. The brain's most important defensive supply, glutathione (GSH), has significantly decreased. A more specific indicator is amylin, a byproduct of lipid oxidative destruction. AMD levels in the HFD brain significantly increased. This means the cellular environment of the cerebral cortex has become extremely hostile. Under the microscope, it looks like a high-level cognitive center is falling. Chapter 4. The leaking energy engine, the mitochondrial crisis. Next, we enter the core of this research, the mitochondria. Mitochondria are the power plants of cells. Although the brain accounts for only 2% of body weight, it consumes 20% of the body's ATP energy. Therefore, the brain is extremely sensitive to the state of its mitochondria. Researchers found that a high-fat diet caused major problems for the brain's power plants, blocked intake, declining oxygen supply. State 3 respiration, which measures mitochondrial vitality, decreased significantly. This means brain cells face serious obstacles in obtaining energy. Spark leaks, ROS toxicity, the activities of SOD and aconitase, enzymes responsible for clearing free radicals within mitochondria, dropped sharply. This is like an engine leaking oil. The leaked oil reactive oxygen species, or ROS, produces no power and instead corrodes all surrounding parts. Abnormal coupling. The study mentions a technical term, degree of coupling. A high-fat diet disrupts the safety valves that control free radical emissions. The result, a high-fat diet turns the brain's energy factories into a source of toxic pollution. Chapter 5. Into the disaster zone, a devastating blow to synapses. If inflammation in the cerebral cortex is a worsening environment, then damage to neural synapses is the collapse of the communication base stations. Synapses are the gateways for information exchange between neurons. Using the Seahorse XFP analyzer, a sophisticated device for measuring cellular respiration, this study found that the level of damage in the synaptic regions far exceeded that of the cerebral cortex as a whole. Scientists call this a damage gradient. TNF-alpha inflammation, while levels rose in the cerebral cortex, they were approximately 140% higher than normal in the synapses. IL-1 beta levels, these were even more shocking, at 240% higher than normal. Why are synapses hit so hard? Because they are the front lines, requiring dense energy to support the release and reuptake of neurotransmitters. When HFD-induced neuroinflammation strikes, synaptic mitochondria fall into total energy exhaustion. Seahorse data showed basal respiration, the basic oxygen supply for synaptic survival, was significantly reduced. Total ATP production shriveled by about 33%. Without ATP, neurons are like signal towers that have lost power. They cannot send any messages. This is why we feel mentally sluggish and experience slower reaction times after long-term high-fat dieting. Chapter 6. Power outage and disconnection, the avalanche of BDNF. We reveal the most heartbreaking part of this collapse, the loss of BDNF. BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, is known as the brain's fertilizer and repair fluid. It is a critical protein for maintaining neuroplasticity and facilitating learning and memory. The study found that the synaptic energy collapse triggered by an HFD directly led to an avalanche in BDNF synthesis across the cerebral cortex. BDNF decreased by about 50%. In synaptic regions, BDNF plummeted by 80%. This is a lethal vicious cycle. Insufficient energy lateral reduced BDNF fertilizer lateral broken synaptic connections lateral further decline in synaptic function. The study also mentions a memory transcription factor called CRAB. In the absence of BDNF, CRAB phosphorylation levels also significantly decreased. In plain terms, your brain has lost the biological foundation for building new memories and learning new skills. Those mice weren't too lazy to use their brains. Their memory recorders failed due to a power outage. Chapter 7. Microdamage in reality, cognitive collapse. You might ask, what does mouse data have to do with me? Let's look at what this means in the real world. Though the brain is only 2% of your weight, it is a high energy and therefore highly fragile organ. 118 x of an HFD cut off the brain's exclusive energy supply. You might experience memory loss, cognitive collapse. Like a computer's cache being cleared, you find both short-term and long-term memory retrieval obstructed. Learning blockage. Losing neuroplasticity makes learning new skills extremely difficult, creating a feeling that your brain won't turn. Sluggishness and brain fog. Neural conduction efficiency drops sharply, causing reaction times to slide during complex logical tasks. Low mood and anxiety. Neuroinflammation directly interferes with the brain's chemical balance, inducing chronic anxiety and mood regulation disorders. Loss of psychological resilience. Long-term cellular oxidative damage strips you of the physiological resilience needed to handle daily stress. Furthermore, this synaptic energy impairment and chronic inflammation are recognized by the medical community immunity as core markers for inducing cognitive decline and neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's. Chapter 8. Out of control appetite, a tragic close the loop. Finally, this research reveals a physiological truth that can make us feel quite powerless. Many think obesity is purely about weak willpower, but research shows that deep in the brain, the weight control radar BDNF has been completely destroyed. BDNF is not just for memory. It is a key central protein for regulating eating and energy balance. When BDNF plummets, the central nervous system loses its ability to regulate energy. This means the more high-fat food you eat, the lower your BDNF goes, and the lower your BDNF, the more your appetite spirals out of control and your basal metabolism becomes disordered. It is a terrible vicious cycle. Western diet lateral brain BDNF crash lateral insulin resistance lateral out of control appetite lateral more severe obesity. Conclusion: jumping out of the high-fat trap, we have discussed so much frightening data. But our goal is not to create anxiety, it's to find a solution. The conclusion of this study offers a very important revelation. Improving mitochondrial function can serve as a strategy to counteract neuroinflammation and brain oxidation. We must understand that the key to protecting brain cognition and emotion might not be simple brain training or memorizing words, but rather repairing the body's metabolic engine and mitochondrial health. The only way is to cut off the metabolic toxicity of high-fat and high-sugar foods at the source. If you have been on a high-fat diet for a long time, please give your brain some time to repair that 80% loss of BDNF. Remember, every bite of food you take is not just filling your stomach. It is providing fuel for your brain's mitochondria. Do you want it to run efficiently, producing wisdom and happiness? Or do you want it to leak oil, rust, and fall into darkness? If you found this helpful, feel free to share it with friends who often have brain fog or are currently addicted to fried chicken. See you next time.